Hello, welcome back to another episode of Truth Seekers Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Kenny Williamson. Today we're going to be talking about, I think we're going to go over some latest news, things that are in the news. And I thought they were interesting. They're not mainstream news, but they are in the news. And we'll also go over some questions, comments, some stuff like that. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been on. Down here in Arkansas, where I live, we've had what they call a heat dome over us. So we have some very, very hot temperatures, like in the hundreds. Low hundreds, but hundreds. Heat index in 100 and something. That's kind of rare for us. We don't normally get that hot. But hey, global warming, I guess, right? Must be that. So, maybe that's what we have going on down here. According to the experts, we've got global warming, heat dome, or summer, however you want to look at it. Anyway, so, it's good to be back. It's been, like I said, it's been a couple of weeks, only because I've been busy. It's been hot. You know, it's hard to get out here and do things when it's 100 degrees and you've got other things to do and you're hot and tired. That's no excuse. I know. I need to put more effort into it. How dare you not get in there, Kenny? You need to get in there and get her done. And that's what I'm doing. So, let's go over and look at some of our topics for today. One that I want to cover is school lunches, something that came out regarding school lunches. Something to do with the Smithsonian Museum, which I think it's a joke to begin with. And maybe we'll talk about some other stuff. So the first thing is school lunches. So me growing up, I obviously ate school lunches. That's all you could eat back then. And I've seen it on posts before. They will show you like a little square piece of pizza, like on a tray, and they're like, do you remember that? Well, when I was growing up, they had pizza day, and it was like a square piece of pizza, like this big. And I thought it was delicious. I always looked forward to pizza day. Who knows what was in it? God only knows, right? But as a rule, since then, since the Obama era, for sure, school lunches have went way downhill. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, we had the first lady, I'm using air quotes if you're listening to this audio only, you know, the first lady, Barack Obama's wife, okay, yeah, I think you know what I'm alluding to there, which most people don't think that that particular individual was born a female, okay? Otherwise known as Big Mike. Let's just say Big Mike, okay? So Big Mike, when Big Mike's husband was in office, Big Mike decided to come out with a deal and revamp school lunches because Big Mike thought people were getting obese, I guess, or fat. So the Big Mike decided to revamp the school lunches down to absolute pig slop, where kids couldn't even eat. But that's the way they do. That's the way devils do. And yeah, he, she, whatever it is, it's a devil. Okay. So the goal was to poison your children at school, if you haven't figured that out yet. Okay. Now, I've talked to you about this before. You're getting it from every angle, okay? So an independent lab has done some testing on school lunches, okay? 40 different schools and school lunches were taken, frozen, and sent to an independent lab for testing. So here's what they found, okay? Over 93% of these foods that were taken from the school tested positive for, how do you say that word? Let me figure out how to say the word and what it means. Okay. It's glyphosate is how you pronounce it. Glyphosate. So 93% positive for glyphosate. Well, what is glyphosate, you ask? Well, let's just tell you real quick. Glyphosate is a broad-spectrum synthetic herbicide or weed killer. The active ingredient in products such as Roundup. Roundup, where they've said, you see it on the news all the time, that Roundup is being sued because it has a lot of cancer-causing products in it, chemicals, and people use it. It sprays back on them and they get cancer. Well, guess what that is? It's the glyphosate. That's what's in it. So it's a weed killer. It was first commercialized by Monsanto, that's in all our food now, this Monsanto deal, in 1974, and is now one of the most widely used weed killers in the world. So, it shouldn't be in food. Now, this is why do some people say that it shouldn't be in food? Why should a weed killer not be in your food? Well, that's pretty much goes without saying, doesn't it? But just so you know, our so-called scientists say that, now these are critics, get this, keep this in mind. This is an article that says critics argue glyphosate does not belong in food. Now, anybody with a brain in their head would know this, but we have to have people arguing, and they're critics. See, this is probably misinformation, right? So, number one, cancer classification. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified glyphosate as a probably carcinogenic to humans. So, in other words, it causes, according to them, lymphoma, oxidative stress, and it's known as a chemical to cause cancer. It's a known chemical. 93% of all of it was filled with glyphosate. Your children's food at school. Okay, yeah. So there's other health concerns that it causes, and there's been lawsuits against the manufacturers of this, but it's in the food. So there's the first one. The other thing is, so you've got 93% positive for glyphosate, 100% positive for heavy metals. What do you think that causes? Heavy metals. What do you think? Well, let's list off some heavy metals, okay? Heavy metals: lead, mercury, arsenic, and certain forms of chromium. They're known to be toxic when ingested because the body has no useful biological role for most of them. They readily interfere with essential cellular processes. Even small amounts can cause harm, especially when repeated for long-term exposure. Let's see, because many of them accumulate in tissues rather than being efficiently excreted. So they build up in your body. They build up in the tissue, and it poisons you. So is that a good reason not to have it in your food, do you think? Apparently the school lunches don't seem to care. Of course, we know we know who's behind all that, don't we? Okay, why are some of these heavy metals harmful? Well, they disrupt normal biochemistry. They bind with proteins, enzymes, and other molecules, and mess that up. And that inactivates enzymes. It displaces essential metals such as zinc, calcium, or iron, ones that you actually need, from their proper places, and interferes with metabolic pathway. So the metabolic process is all messed up. They create oxidative stress. They bioaccumulate. So in other words, they keep getting more and more and more. The more you take, the more you got in your body. they affect your nervous system. Lead and mercury are neurotoxins. Keep in mind, lots of your snake bites are full of mercury, packed full. And they've come to realize that people with high mercury, it goes into your brain and it accumulates. And then it stops the normal processes, these pathways, it blocks them, and then they get Alzheimer's and dementia. Imagine that. Imagine that. Right here, they can impair brain development in children, cause lower IQ, learning and behavior problems. Sounds like the perfect thing to put into a school lunch, don't it? You know, a place of learning. Don't you mean an indoctrination camp? That's what I would call it. Yeah. Anyway, they also damage your kidneys and your liver. Blood and your cardiovascular system. Lead, for example, interferes with hemoglobin synthesis, causing anemia. And it can also raise your blood pressure. Bones and tissues. Cadmium can weaken the bones. Arsenic is linked to skin changes and various cancers. The list literally goes on and on and on. So, in other words, do you want heavy metal in your kids' school lunches? No. No, you don't. But they're there. Okay. Over in this list, over 29 different pesticides were found. 29 pesticides. So we know we've got herbicides, and now we've also got pesticides. Guess what else was found? Aviary contraceptive. An aviary contraceptive. What that is it prevents a bird from laying eggs. So this aviary contraceptive was found in school lunches. So a chemical that prevents birds from laying eggs. Now, why do you think they would stick that into a school lunch? Any ideas? And of course, we found very toxic heavy metals, which we've said, high levels that are known to cause permanent brain damage. No problem. Serve it. And we also found very low nutrients, like abysmal levels of nutrients. The lab, the person who's tested this in the lab, said the levels of nutrients were so low that there were more toxins than nutrients in the food. So the food that was sent in, it was more toxins than nutrients. There's no nutrients to it. Sounds like a pretty good government school lunch program, don't it? You know, and they're expensive, by the way. Here locally at one of our schools, okay, and I don't know how this happens, but everything at this school is very expensive. And the school seems to have lots of money. I know me personally, my taxes went through the roof this year. I went from paying $600 a year to $1,200 a year to $3,000 a year this year. So when you look at that tax breakdown, majority of that $3,000 is going to the local school. That's what they get. They're getting, and that's just from me, from a very tiny house in the middle of nowhere. So you can imagine how much money they're raking in. Millions. So the one big school over here, you know, they charge an outrageous amount for school lunches. So these kids go to school, they can't even afford a school lunch. So I guess the school goes ahead and feeds them, but then they start racking up these fees and stuff. And it was published on their site the other day, a little while back, that there was like $200 and some thousand worth of unpaid school lunches. And the school is going after these parents and going to try to take them to court. Okay? A public school, you're forced to take your children there, and you're forced to buy their meals. And you see what's in their meals. Okay. So the school is trying to sue the parents. Come to find out, somebody did a little research, and the state actually offers a big amount of money to the school specifically to pay for those lunches. But our school here, they declined it and said they don't want to apply for that free money, like a free grant to pay for it. So parents are like, so you're going after the parents. You're going after the parents. Now you're making it where the kids are no longer allowed to eat. They're going to like cut them off, apparently. You have access to the money to offer free lunches, but you won't take it. How much sense does that make? That's the kind of stuff we deal with. Okay, now, why these people are even still in charge at these schools is beyond me. They should be arrested. In fact, they should test the food just like they did in this one here at this school. And if these numbers are the same here as they are at this school here, these people here should be drug out on the street. And they should be prosecuted. They should be arrested for serving poison and charging for it. That's what I would do if I was in charge. Good thing I'm not in charge, right? So that's what's happening. Okay. Anyway, you go on this whole list here. It says, that doesn't end there. This was also found during additional testing of different foods in America. So they tested some other foods, and they found out that the school lunches contain 6,000% more heavy metals than deemed safe. 6,000%. Now, I don't even know what level would be considered safe because it goes to your brain and causes Alzheimer's and causes dementia, so probably very little. 6,000 more than that. 6,000 more percent. They tested some fast food burgers. It said fast food burgers contained 1,000% more heavy metals than deemed safe. That's why I quit eating fast food burgers many, many years ago. Let's see. 100% of Chick-fil-A sandwiches also had this Avery contraceptive. So now, I think Chick-fil-A tastes good. Okay, I like Chick-fil-A. It's been in the recent 6, 7, 8 months, maybe a year. I've discovered that Chick-fil-A is just like all the others. Okay, it's poison. Sorry, all you Chick-fil-A lovers. I know it tastes good. It's finger licking good. Oh no, that's KFC, right? It's finger licking good, right? Okay, I know. And it's also poison. Sorry. I mean, unless you don't mind taking a bird contraceptive, among other things. You watch some of the videos, do a little deep dive on what's in their food, and like their fries and stuff's got the same chemicals in it as in their buns, the same chemical as spray foam. So they put a lot of added extra chemicals in there that you don't need. You could just have regular bread. No, ours is packed full of chemicals. So, okay. American fast food burgers, the ones they tested, contain tons of butanol. Butanol, they suspect, has been injected into these cows because it makes them grow faster so they can hurry up and get them and butcher them. On the data sheet for that particular drug that they're injecting into these cows, it causes aggression and combativeness. So it's like a hormone. So you're getting that hormone and it's transferring into you because it's found in the meat that you're getting ready to eat. So it doesn't dissipate. Okay. Let's see. And of course this one's interesting. And I've heard this about Girl Scout cookies. They're terrible for you. 93 to 100% samples tested of baby formula, fast food, and Girl Scout cookies contained weed killer. So the glyphosate. So, this one's a good one here. I've never eaten at Trader Joe's, and I don't know anything about gluten-free, but I know people who try to get gluten-free, right? They're like, oh, I've got to have gluten-free. Everything's got to be gluten-free. Trader Joe's gluten-free bagel contains huge amounts of gluten. In fact, it said the one tested contained 20 times higher than the regular one. So the gluten-free is actually higher gluten. So can you even trust, I mean, can you trust what you read on the label? Any of this highly processed food is junk. It's all junk. It's always been junk. I mean, they've supposedly, JFK Jr. supposedly trying to get rid of this stuff. They're not doing a very fast or good job of it. I know they have taken red dye out of a lot of stuff, like Diet Dr. Pepper cherry. They took the cherry color out because it's just dye. It didn't make any difference on the flavor. So they're taking dyes out of stuff. So things that are cherry flavored, even like strawberry chocolate milk, is no longer strawberry colored. It's not red colored, light pink or whatever it was, because that's just dye. So they're trying to do some things, but still everything like this, it's still packed full of poison, toxins, the whole 9 yards. Now, my theory on that, as you already know, I mean, big schools, public schools are run by the government. Okay. Big government, big pharma, all the above. They're all ran by the same entity, Satan, on the back end. So that's what you're going to get. You're going to get the most toxic, horrible stuff that you can imagine. And that's not just me saying that. Okay, even here recently in this World Cup deal, we had, and I'll have to look it up, which country. One of the countries that participated in that, it said they spent thousands and thousands of dollars bringing in food from their country specifically for their people. They didn't want to eat American food. They know that it's full of toxins and trash. They brought over good stuff from there. Actually, real good stuff. None of this junk in it. Not full of weed killer, in other words. Any wonder? So, all over the earth, they know what we're doing over here. Okay? They know. And, it's like this thing here says, and I believe this too, there's exactly 0% chance that these school lunches are this poisonous by accident. There's 0% chance this can be an accident. It's a deliberate, and this is my opinion, right? It's a deliberate mass depopulation, which is a demonic agenda. Okay. This is from the same people who told you to go get a snake bite, a rattlesnake bite. And you know what I mean. Okay. Now, it's one of those things, these guys, in Congress over there that mandated all this stuff and everything. Now, the rattlesnake bite came out. They were all given exemptions or they didn't have to go get a rattlesnake bite. You understand that? They didn't get it. You got it. I didn't get it. They didn't get it. But lots of people got it. Okay? That's how they do it. What's good for thee, not necessarily for me. Okay? So they tell you that it's good and you need to get it, all while exempting themselves from it. For some reason, they don't want it. Bill Gates does the same thing. He went on live TV. It's been a long time ago, talking about how none of his children have ever had any type of vaccination their whole lives. But he owns a company that pushes it, and he says you should get it. But his kids aren't getting it. Neither is he. I wonder why. Makes you wonder, don't it? Things that make you go, Well, I already know why. And you should know why by now too. Okay? All right, let's see here. Let's go to the next one that I had here. Let me get back to my notes. Okay. This is one that came up, and this is funny to me. It's the Smithsonian National Museum, which I think is a joke. I think all that stuff is a joke, and I tell you why I think it's a joke. The Smithsonian has been like a... Now, first of all, if you're from where I'm at, you probably never have hardly been in a museum. And if you have, it's not much. But the Smithsonian is a giant museum. And it's more than that. They're like nationwide. It's a government deal. So the Smithsonian puts on all kinds of things, or has in the past. And so let's say you're an archaeologist, okay? And you're out there digging, and you find a skeleton of a giant. Well, the Smithsonian takes possession of that skeleton, and it's never seen again. So that's happened, and we could do a podcast on that sometime, but that's happened over and over and over. So why would they do that? Well, the Smithsonian is one of those big government entities, somehow connected, that promotes Big Bang and promotes evolution. Okay? And evolution is a very carefully protected state religion, if you didn't know that. And the Smithsonian worked for the state. So they have to promote evolution. So when they actually go digging and they find something that doesn't support the fake narrative, it's immediately hidden or destroyed. Smithsonian is the ones behind that. The Smithsonian is the one that displays all of your fake half monkey, half person deals and claims that it's true even though it's been proven false. They still push it. Again, evolution is a state religion, and it's very heavily protected and funded by the state. That's why it's in every textbook out there. You know, the same textbook at the public school that's serving you the heavy metals that can cause you brain damage, same ones. Hey, no link there. Just all coincidence. So the Smithsonian, they're liars, they're devils, the whole 9 yards. I know that. You should know that. They're hiding the truth from what they've found, and they're teaching their evolution. That's what they're there for. But not only that, they've jumped on the bandwagon, the white supremacy bandwagon that's going around now. You know, that's the thing now. If you're white, you have white privilege. And so if your skin is lighter melanated, like mine, you should be ashamed of yourself. Even though you've done nothing wrong. You're a criminal somehow. Well, the Smithsonian's got on that bandwagon too. Okay? And this was actually brought up in one of the House oversight hearings. And I learned about it on there. And then sure enough, they were interviewing the lady, head over to the Smithsonian. And this is the kind of people they have in all those locations. That's why they promote what they do. They're devils. They're liars and devils. Now, hopefully, well, I'm a Christian. Let me digress for a second. Hopefully, they'll get saved and denounce this stuff. Hopefully. But if they don't, hopefully they'll burn in hell where they belong. That's what I say. So here's what they say. Smithsonian National Museum has classified, they have a long list of stuff that they have classified. If you do this stuff or are part of this stuff, you are a white supremacist. You're a racist. White supremacy at its finest if you do any of this stuff. Well, I'll just read through the list barely. It's on their website, or was. They took it down because people were like, you've got to be kidding, right? So they took it down. But we've still got pictures of it. People take pictures of this stuff, screenshots, and that's what we have. So it's never going away. So anyway, one of the biggies on their list, Christianity. Of course. If you're a Christian and claim to follow Christ, well, then you're a white supremacist. Because, see, these other countries, other people who may not be white, see, they don't like Christianity. They want to worship the devil. They want to do voodoo or worship false pagan gods. So, in other words, if you're a Christian and want to do the right thing, well, you must be a white supremacist. Okay? Here's another thing that makes you a white supremacist. The nuclear family. The nuclear family is basically a man, a woman, and his children. A family. Married. If you want to have a man, a husband, and a wife, and a couple of kids and have a job, the nuclear family, well, then you're a white supremacist, according to them. Okay? Here's another one. If your children have their own rooms, you're a white supremacist. Because, see, lower people or people who don't have enough money or maybe people in another country, I don't even know what they're from, they have to all lump together in one room because, they won't work or they're too poor or whatever. So the fact that you go to work and have a job and have a family and you've got a couple of different bedrooms so the kids are able to split up, you're a white supremacist. Keep in mind, this is on the Smithsonian website, a museum. This is what they label as white supremacy. You're a racist. You're a bigot. Okay? Oh, here's another one. If the husband's the breadwinner and the head of the household, so husband can't make more money or, be in charge like the Bible says. Of course, that goes back to Christianity. So you're a bigot. You're a racist. Okay. Here's another one. The wife is a homemaker or a subordinate to the husband. So if the woman wants to stay at home and raise the kids, you're a white supremacist. Self-reliance. If you rely on yourself to get things done, you're a white supremacist. How dare you do that? How dare you not just rely on somebody else to do everything for you? Here's another one. Independence. Do you have independence and able to do your own things and have your own independent thoughts? Well, then you're racist. You're a bigot. You're a white supremacist. Here's one. Individuals assume to be in control of their environment. So, you can't know what's going on around you and, shape your life and try to do the right things, be in control of your life a little bit. No, you can't do that. If you have objective, rational, linear thinking, you're a white supremacist. I mean, the list goes on and on. Okay, if you believe that hard work is the key to success, you're a white supremacist. If you work before you play, you're a white supremacist. So if you're like, man, I'd love to go to the beach, but I've really got to get this work done. Because see, this other group that they're referring to, they're like, I don't want to work. I want to go play. This other group that they're referring to, they don't have any control over their environment. They just do whatever. Let's see. How about this one? This is, if you didn't meet your goals, you didn't work hard enough mentality. So in other words, they're like, look, I've got some goals. I want to meet them. I didn't get what I wanted to get done, so I need to work harder. I didn't do enough. Well, that's a white supremacist mentality, see, because you're supposed to be the opposite. You're supposed to be like, I'm not working for anything. Oh, I didn't get it done. Who cares? That's all on you. That's what they want you to do, see. This is what the Democrats, okay, the lunatic left, the stuff we have trying to run our show today that runs our government, that's what they want. Everything they're describing here is what a normal person would want to do. Just a normal person. Doesn't matter what your skin color is. Doesn't matter where you're from. This is a normal person list. Okay, but they want you to think that it's not a normal person list. It's somehow you're a white supremacist list. Okay, here's the other one. If you believe in the justice system, you're a white supremacist. If you celebrate holidays like Christmas, well, you're a white supremacist. If you want to protect your private property, you're a white supremacist. If you like making your own decisions, if you avoid conflict, if you don't mind being polite, if you're being polite, that's white supremacists. See, because they don't want you to be polite. They want you to be like this other group that you see on the internet all the time that walks up and punches people in the face and cusses you out and steals and shoplifts. They don't want you avoiding conflict. They constantly want you cussing and in a fight, up in people's faces, cussing, spitting. That's what they want, okay? Everything on here. Oh, and that's the good one right there. One of the good ones, protecting private property. You shouldn't do that. You should allow somebody else to come in, hold you at gunpoint, rape your wife and your kids, steal all your stuff, and you should just sit there because their life's not worth it. You shouldn't be able to protect anything. They can just run wild, run all over you and kill you. That's what they say. Now, that's not happening. It's not happening here. So the fact, like me, I protect my private property. If you burst into my door, okay, I don't know what you're there for, and we're not going to have the conversation to find out. You see what I mean? You'll just be hauled out on a stretcher in the morgue from the coroner. You get it? So, but I'm a white supremacist, see, because I don't want people busting into my house and killing me in my sleep. So I'm a white supremacist. So they actually quoted that list. This is a government-funded entity, which, okay, they're devils. We know that. So she actually, the head over this, actually had to go and sit before Congress and get asked these questions. And the guy was like, you're telling us that you can't even be polite without being a white supremacist. That's what you're teaching. And they have these displays and stuff at the museum, of course. Of course, the other stuff they have is all about trans and the LGBTQ. That's what you're going to see at a museum now. I thought you were going there to see artifacts, maybe, bones, something about history, maybe. Nah, cut all that out and let's show stuff about trans, LGBTQ, and white supremacy. That's what we have today. That's what we have today, folks. That's where you're at right now. So if a person can take their kids out of public school, that's what I would do. I would send my kids to public school if I could avoid it. Now, can I avoid it? Well, I couldn't back in the day, but if you could for any way avoid sending them to public school, that's what I would do. Or if you have to send them to public school, send them with a lunch, something that you fixed and sent with them. Because the slop that they're serving these days is probably not fit for a rat to eat at majority of the schools. And then at the schools we have, they charge you an arm and a leg for it, and then they want to come after you and sue you if you don't want to pay it. Even though they could pay it, and they've got a very big budget. But that's what we have today. I mean, the public schools here even have went so far downhill, it's not even funny. And then, of course, the Smithsonian deal here, like I was saying, I don't go to the Smithsonian, never have. But I've seen where the Smithsonian has, sent all these different guys out to find these bones. And, of course, they have these dinosaurs on display because they promote dinosaurs. Millions of years ago, billions of years ago. That's their whole motto. These things evolved. And, of course, they have these big displays of half monkey, half people claiming that you evolved from a monkey. That's what they teach. But they're all atheists and they're all devils. But according to them, they're the smart ones. They know. They know they came from a monkey. That's how smart they are. I think we know. I think we know the difference on there, don't we? Don't we know? I do. I know I didn't come from a monkey. I came from a creator. Okay, and these guys would know that too, but they're under a strong delusion. They're their own gods. They don't want to be held accountable for what they're doing, but they will be. Oh, and I can't wait for it, because most of these are lifelong. They're lifelong devils. These aren't people who have made a few mistakes and regret it. Oh, they don't regret it. They want to do the stuff. They enjoy it. And they want to mislead you. They want you to be miserable. That's why they have these lists. Okay, they don't want anybody to succeed. They want you to go get your snake bite and then, not survive it. That's what they want. That's why they don't go get them. They want you to go get them. Do you think they're eating those school lunches? No, I promise you they're not. Okay, so they will have their lunch and your kids will have their lunch. The kids' lunch is full of poison designed to affect the brain and other organs. And then long term, because this stuff keeps building up, when you're about 60, then you'll go and you'll get dementia. And they'll say, well, I don't know, his brain's full of mercury. His brain's full of heavy metal. So, of course, it's not working. It's a buildup over time. So, in other words, they put a little bit in everything. You see how that works? Of course, when those, circuits and pathways in your brain get clogged up with heavy metal, I'm sure you're a whole lot easier to control then, too. Wouldn't you imagine? Anyway, so I've got some more with the next one I was going to talk about. Of course, already 42 minutes into this. It's has to do with the snake bites. And if you haven't been keeping up on that, okay, I mean, seriously, I know people who are still getting in line to go get a rattlesnake bite. The news is literally littered with people suing over the rattlesnake bite. People dropping like flies over the rattlesnake bite, and now they can prove it. They've looked at the rattlesnake bite under microscopes, and it's clearly poison. Okay? And this is one of the things. Yeah. Airlines. When this whole rattlesnake bite thing came out, I remember the airlines enforced it, and they forced all of their pilots to go get a rattlesnake bite. Okay. Lots of people didn't, and they lost their jobs. Well, guess what now? There's not hardly any pilots. According to the news that I'm reading, they have a huge shortage of pilots and a whole bunch of them passed away right after they got bit by a rattlesnake. Whole bunch of more have had all kinds of in-flight emergencies since that time. And now these different airlines are coming out saying you don't have to have it, and they don't even want you to have it. Especially if you're a pilot. Well, why is that, you think? Well, because their pilots are not living very long now and having all kinds of emergency episodes while flying a plane. And so the passengers are in danger, and these people's insurance is going through the roof, and they're getting sued. So now the airlines don't want pilots that have been bitten by rattlesnakes. In fact, it's even mentions banning people who have been bitten by rattlesnakes. They don't even want them on their planes because they're having all kinds of in-flight emergencies all the time. Imagine that. What do you think was going to happen? Just curious. What did you think? Now we've got other countries. They're looking into this even more, and they're suing people. They're trying to sue, these big pharmas that put out these snake bites. I mean, it's unbelievable. And yet, we've got Fauci, who tried to hide all of his emails and lie about them, and who has purposely funded stuff. Not only do they take let's say, a bug, okay? They take a bug and they purposely try to make the bug worse. That's called gain of function. Not only did they do that, but they showed where he and others with him were trying to get it to where they erased the fingerprints off of them to where you can't tell it was manipulated. You can't tell it had a gain of function, or you can't trace it back to who did it. So in other words, they're trying to cover their tracks. Because see, no normal doctor or anybody normal would try to make a bug worse and then try to hide the fact that they did it unless they're up to no good. See, that's not helping anything medical. Now, this guy here, he's like head over whatever doing these tests. He's supposed to be there trying to find cures for things like cancer and diseases. He's supposed to be a doctor, Dr. Fauci, right? Who's there to help people, to get cures for things. Come to find out, everything he does is making it worse. He's not interested in curing anybody. You see? And he's walking around free. Completely free. He's the one that had to get a pardon from Biden. Remember? I mean, if he's done nothing wrong, why would he need a pardon? But he got a pardon from the thing that signs letters, you know, from the fake Biden. Okay. From the puppet on a string, whatever that thing is that they're claiming is the real deal. The auto pen. Remember that? Everything was signed by the auto pen because the thing that's sitting up there is an actor. Well, he's one of the ones that helped, you know, get that snake bite out there and encouraged everybody to get it. He himself, do you think he took it? Of course he didn't. He's one of the same ones. You've got to wear that mask. Came up with the mask mandates. Come to find out, made it all up. Which, of course, it's made up. Okay. You see him behind the scenes. Anytime he's around, he had his mask down, but they're like, "Okay, Fauci, you're fixing to be on the air." He hurried and put his mask on, and then say, "Oh, you got to wear that mask." And then when their camera goes off and they're not recording, well, he just pulls it off. He's a liar and a devil. He's been caught. So's Gates. Other countries, you know, want to prosecute him. Are they ever going to get prosecuted? I doubt it, because they're all part of this big devil deal we got going on here. The vampire ball that we have going on here in the U.S., they're part of that. So you don't think the other vampires are going to turn them in, do you? Of course they're not. They're all in it together. You see, this vampire ball that's going on here, it's very widespread. A lot of vampires around here. Okay? Now, FYI, if you're new to this podcast and you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, which is a possibility, lots of things have to be said in a sort of a way not to get banned. Okay? If I just come out and say what I'm saying, but I say it in plain English, then I will be immediately flagged for misinformation, conspiracy theories. Okay? So we have to use certain words to represent other words. It's a game I like to play. So if you haven't figured it out yet, that's what we're doing here. Okay? So don't go get bit by a rattlesnake, right? Because chances are you're not going to survive it. Lots of people are getting sick and have got sick and have already perished from getting bit by a rattlesnake. In fact, if it was up to the government, you'd be bitten about 50 times now, or a bunch. You'd have a lot of bites by now. And, you know, here we are. It's coming down to, there's going to be a time when governments and stuff, an actual business, let's say, if you want to remain in business, your workforce is going to have to be rattlesnake bite free, or you're not going to have a workforce. You see? Because they're going to be too sick to work. You can't force your employee to go get bitten by a rattlesnake and then wonder why they're too sick to work. You see, how are you going to make money like that if that's the way you're trying to do business? Well, these airlines and others have found out that was a very poor decision to back that. So now, because, flying airplanes, you got to have a pilot's license. It takes years and years of studying and building hours to ever become that. And then you've got somebody that's qualified and can do the job, and you force them to get bit by a rattlesnake and they're dead the next day. Well, you can't just hire somebody off the street. Oh, I know they want to. They'd love to do the DEI hires, but that doesn't work. You actually have to have the hours. Now, I'm sure they've lowered the requirements terribly, because they love that DEI. Didn't earn it. They love that. They love that too. And that'll get you in big trouble as well. Trying to put somebody up there and claim they're qualified when they're not, because of this whole white supremacy thing. Yeah. See where that gets you. That's going to get you sued real quick when they make a mistake. But anyway, having said all that, I didn't get to my comments, questions, and answers, but I will. And I have another deal coming up. I've got a deal. I'm going to do a little expose on Ruby Ridge, the siege at Ruby Ridge. Now, if you don't know what that is, I'm going to tell you about it, but it has to do with government overreach, right? Government doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing to private citizens. First, they did the siege at Ruby Ridge, and then right after that, they did the thing at Waco, if you remember Waco, Texas. So a lot of the same people that did Ruby Ridge were the same people that were there at Waco. Surprise! Broke a lot of laws. A lot of people got hurt. A lot of people got unalived. That kind of deal. So anyway, having said all that, I'm going to wrap this one up for tonight. Thanks for listening. Check out the podcast. Obviously you did, but like and share it on Spotify. Check out it on YouTube. I've got a TikTok thing I'm trying to do on there too, just to try to spread, get people here or interested. Check out the websites. It's flatbro.com, kennywilliamson.com, truthseekersministry.org. All these go to the same place, really. Or will eventually. So you can check out any of those. Email me, truthseekers2012@gmail.com if you have any questions. Other than that, I think that's it for today. But as always, hey, get saved before it's too late. You're not guaranteed one more breath. You're not guaranteed another heartbeat. Put your faith in Jesus Christ while you can. Time is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and you don't know when your last day is. So do that. I promise you, when it's all said and done, you'll thank me for that later. You'll thank me for that advice later if you just do it. Okay. Thanks for listening. Until we meet again, God bless you.